For every day that comes, it presents itself with another opportunity for us to get the wrongs right. Good morning and welcome to Rise and Shine. It's a Thursday, obviously the 22nd day of March 2023. My name is Janice Cobham and I'm super delighted to have you join us this morning. Welcome.
Good morning, great people of Africa. Good morning, great people of Nigeria. Good morning, Akwa Ibom State. My name is Uyai Aneka, and it's a beautiful day to be alive and a great day to rise and shine. Start on those things that you have been forestalling on. Of course, we'd like for you to be a part of the conversation and the growing community. So like, share, comment across all our social media platforms, all of which you can find at spectrumtv.ng. When we throw open our phone lines, we'd like for you to call us in, send us WhatsApp and text messages, and make your contributions on the issues raised on the floor of Rise and Shine this morning. A very good morning to you once again.
Good morning, Uyai.
Good morning, Johnny.
I think I would start by asking, how does it feel? Have you ever been in that position where you get to win before? How is that feeling, that winning feeling?
If I've been in the position where I've won before,
How does it feel?
I guess it's a good feeling.
Yeah.
Or when you've maybe fulfilled something that you have been going on for a while, the feeling is good. It's refreshing.
Yeah, definitely. No matter how little the wins are, it's bound to be celebrated. So I can just imagine what's going on in Abia State right now.
Absolutely, absolutely. That win is massive.
Yeah, it is massive.
I think that is the biggest celebration we have seen so far since all the announcements have been made. It's widespread. I mean, it's happening in one state alone, but it seems to be overwhelming other parts of the nation. Others cannot help but join in their celebration, and I think that's what a win should actually feel like.
Yeah,
the
definitely.
Win of the people.
The win of the people. Okay, so just flash news. CBN Governor Godwin Emefiele has directed DMBS to begin the disbursement of old 1,500 and 200 naira notes to members of the public effective today. Okay, so obviously, the Central Bank of Nigeria has asked that old notes, 1,500 and 200 naira notes, should begin to be disbursed to commercial banks from today. I think that's also good news. Even though they had some amount of, I think about 1 trillion naira that was disbursed or released to commercial banks before now, and people kept reacting and responding to the fact that, these monies, we're still experiencing the serious scarcities around and all of that. And but I know that Godwin Emefiele is of the thought that definitely things will get better, and we will improve. Nigerians will begin to see monies in circulation, and of course business will continue as usual.
It's a good one, but we need to see that happening already. It's now not interesting anymore. The conversation, it's not interesting anymore because it happened and happened again. Then one will think, why wasn't this directive given as soon as the CBN had given accent to the fact.
No, the point is the monies at some point they said it was about 1 trillion naira that was released, disbursed to commercial banks, but people were still crying out that that there are still no monies, there's still scarcity of cash and all of that. So maybe this is another disbursement that the CBN is trying to do, but obviously Godwin Emefiele is of the opinion that today, which is Thursday, the old 500, 1,200 naira notes will begin to be disbursed to commercial banks beginning from today. Anyways, that's it on our flash news. We'll go straight now to our major conversations. We talked about winning, and it seems to be a beehive of activities in a state like Abia State. Let's not forget that we had elections on the 18th of March, which was the gubernatorial and state houses of assembly elections around the country, exactly in 28 states across Nigeria. And for some states, election was done and dusted and governor-elect was announced. But in some other states, we had issues where either elections was declared inconclusive, and Enugu and Abia State was one of the states, and even Adamawa State was one of those states where we had inconclusive results. But I think as it stands now, Enugu has been cleared. There's a governor-elect correct, but Abia State seemed to be one state that was on the spotlight for everybody, and we were waiting, keeping fingers crossed on that particular one for what was going to come out from Abia State likely today. And of course, yesterday we saw a whole lot of jubilation coming from Abia State. So more like it's a big congratulations there to the obedient movement in Abia State, first and foremost. And a big congratulations to democracy, because this was more like, okay, he was leading 90,000 votes ahead of his other opponent. So what is the reason why INEC is not, declaring him the winner? And, I remember yesterday we talked about this, where I said, okay, so maybe INEC is trying to like see how they can actually collate every result and count every local government before the announcement was actually made. But then again, there seems to be some little allegations here and there, in the sense that, oh, maybe there someone was trying to manipulate something and coerce somebody to make a wrong announcement. But we
how would you do that up to close the gap of 90,000? That would be a massive rig.
Yeah,
but
definitely.
It's nice to see that it wasn't, quite attempted in the obvious. We cannot generally rule out if or not that happened. But as long as it did not overturn the expectation of all Nigerians, because like yesterday, like we said, the whole of the country was actually looking like what's going to happen in Abia State. Is there anyone who's going to dare to upturn anything? But then we see the fact that Alex Otti has been announced as the governor-elect, and the uproar of joy from Abia State. I mean, there are videos of people, market people, Janice. We're talking of everyday Nigerians. We're not talking of the people that surround you, your fellow elites that surround you, where they are going to be there when you're popping the champagne of your win. We're not talking about those psychophant celebrations that comes from, the who is who in your cabinet. No, we're talking of street people. Some people just heard it over their radios, over their televisions, and they came out on the streets and what kind of win is that? It's a long time we saw that kind of thing in Nigeria.
Yeah, for the first time, more like after the whole election thing, we are actually seeing a state in Abia State that actually, jubilated the outcome of a particular election result. So let's quickly, yes, if you're just joining us, of course, we are talking about our major stories for this morning, and we went straight to Abia State, where Alex Otti of the Labour Party is declared as the winner for the governorship elections that happened on March 18. And just to put things in perspective, of course, he trounced his opponents, Oke Ehiwe of the People's Democratic Party and Naya Nwafo of the Young People's Party, YPP. Otti scored 175,467 votes, while Ehiwe polled 88,529 votes, and Nwafo got 28,922. The Labour Party candidate also won 10 of the 17 local government areas in the state. PDP got 6, while the YPP got 1. Now, the returning officer of the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, in the state, Professor Nanaya Otti, declared Otti the winner on Wednesday evening at the resumption of the final collation of governorship election results in Umuahia, the Abia State capital, over 48 hours after INEC suspended the exercise in the southeast state. I think aside from, the whole of Abia State, jubilating, this Professor Nina was actually the heroine yesterday because she trended. But before we continue on this conversation, let's give a listen to, what she said.
My guiding principles since I started collation activities for the Abia State governorship election. My guiding principles since I started collation activities for the Abia State governorship election on Sunday, 19th March 2023. 1. I am Professor Mrs. Nena N. Otti Ni Ibewo from Afibo, Ebonyi State. 2, I am the current Vice Chancellor of FUTO, that is, the Federal University of Technology, Owerri. 3, democracy remains the best form of government. And democracy is the government of the people, by the people, and for the people. It is the best form of governance. 4, I have spent the better part of my adult life in pursuit of the high ideals of good governance, which includes, but are not limited to, the following: the rule of law, transparency, accountability, inclusiveness, etc. I shall stand squarely, unapologetically on these principles. Right. Therefore, the people's voice and mandate shall stand. The pastor in me and the mother in me also will not permit me to do anything that will adversely affect the future of our children. I shall do right by God and by man. 7, the position of INEC Abuja on the Obingwa case was already in the public view by a press release and indeed a press interview by Mr. Festus Okoye, the INEC chairman, Professor Mahmoud Yakubu, had called me and briefed me on the proper way to proceed. I shall therefore abide by all INEC guidelines. I shall now call the admin secretary. He has already done that. That is what I said. At this point on Monday, I then call the INEC admin secretary to read to us verbatim the press release. Thereafter, we continued with our collusion activities. Yes, he has already done that. Thank you. At this point, therefore, we shall proceed with the proceedings of the day. I now call on the EO and the OC of Obingwa to present their results accordingly. Thank you. Are they here? Thank you.
Okay, so that was Professor Nnannaya Otti, a Nigerian professor and the first female substantive Vice Chancellor of Federal University of Technology, Owerri. I think, yeah, we listened to her, and I was having chills and having goosebumps and everything when this lady was actually speaking. And from her tone, she seems to be a very strict person. She seems to be a good disciplinarian. Not just the fact that she's an educationist, but I think that she upholds the ethos of democracy more than any other thing. And just like she said, she's first a mother, and for the benefits of her grandchildren and even the children yet unborn in Abia State, the right thing must be done.
In a day that we live in where it looks like everybody's character in Nigeria is questionable, you cannot actually trust who get to the position and do what they're meant to do. It's good to know that we still have a crop of people that, in spite of all we know happens in this country, they still stand unabated by, you know, such forces, because I think everything she said in her opening statement was clear. If you would read between the lines, you would know she has, you know, she has set how the rules of her own house, where she's presiding over in Abia State, must run. And she's saying, if you want to go against the guidelines of democracy, the guidelines given by the Electoral Act for INEC and the rest, you will not succeed here, because, you know, this is who I am. Remember, she called out her 4 I ams, you know, why she's doing what she is doing. And I think it's very instructive for every other person across board. Even through this election, we have seen people sell their consciences, either as presiding officers or even people at the collation centers, just for, you know, things to be done differently. And like Professor Nena Otti rightly said, it is democracy, the government for the people. She insisted that, you know, the right and the decision of the people must be seen in the results of the election thereof, you know. And it was good that she cleared that and set that tone before any kind of proceeding started, so that we are not hearing funny stories. Remember yesterday, you know, the question was more like, how would you have someone that is leading up to 90,000 gap in terms of votes to the closest next candidate, and you're saying there is a drag in announcing,
and we're just waiting for a local government with 24,000.
Yes, less than 27,000. It would have been a shock. So this is, like you said, you know, before we played that video, she's the actual heroine of these election in Abia State. The people of Abia State will forever remember her for a very long time. Let's not forget that Abia State have seemed to be in the dark for so long.
With the leadership of Ikpazu,
yes,
Ikpazu,
it even goes beyond Okeze Ikpazu and other administrations that have come before Okeze Ikpazu. One way or the other, they've always not had administrations that, you know, wanted to develop Abia State, even though they have a lot of resources and, you know, a lot of energy with them in the state. But now this is more like the people decided, okay, we want a new, and the person they wanted won the election. This also shows you that the Abians had gone out en masse to vote for the candidate of their choice in the gubernatorial elections, and now they have the right of say, because that person, you know, is the one that has been announced as governor-elect. Just look at the screens. This is widespread celebrations. The common man, Janice, is the person celebrating this win, not the elites in the state. This says a lot about the democracy we were expecting, you know, and the kinds of energy we were expecting in the turn of our elections in this 2023 cycle. It's commendable. I mean, like we rightly said, Professor Nena Otti is trending in the country for, you know, that kind of energy that she, you know, has put forth. Now you can imagine that she probably was threatened and put under some kind of pressure. And she just put them off her back with one. No.
Okay, very quickly now, let's talk about a little bit more about Alex Otti. Saw something very interesting here about him. He's a Nigerian economist, banker, and investor. He's also a philanthropist and politician. Of course, he's the current governor-elect of Abia State in Nigeria, and the former group managing director of Diamond Bank PLC. Something very interesting. He was also the gubernatorial candidate of Abia on the platform of the All Progressives Grand Alliance, that is ABGA now, and that happened on the 31st of December 2015. Now, interestingly, the Court of Appeal, which sat in Owerri, removed Okeze Ikpazu of the People's Democratic Party as governor of Abia State, which means that he ran alongside Okeze Ikpazu in 2015 and declared Otti the winner of the April 11 and April 25 governorship elections in the state. Now, interestingly, again, on February 3, 2016, the Supreme Court of Nigeria reversed the verdict of the Court of Appeal and affirmed the election of Okeze Ikpazu as governor. Quite interesting, I must say. A lot of turns and twists in these political processes. But we are happy that the people of Abia State, more like their voices, the voices of the common man, was heard at the last instance, and they have a new governor-elect in the person of Alex Otti. But let's look at some of the major clips of Abians. Is it Abians?
Abians,
yes, Abians. Let's see how they actually celebrated this win on the streets of Abia State yesterday.
They say PDP, go to court. PDP, rest in peace. Oh boy, you there street too.
Well, I like the fact that, we concluded on that particular video there by where we saw Professor Nena Otti, showing her cultural dance steps and everything. I know that video has nothing to do with the jubilations in Abia State in terms of the winning of the elections, but of course, you know how netizens will behave. They'll just go and dig up some of those videos in trying to celebrate the kind of person she is and what she stands for today in the Nigerian democratic system. And it shows that she's a woman of great principle, right? But away from that, we also saw other videos telling us how, the people of Abia State are taking the win of Alex Otti, who is the governor-elect of Abia State under the Labour Party. And I and Uya were just talking behind the camera of how palpable the feeling is. Like we could literally feel the vibes and everything, the happiness coming from, just watching the people rejoice. And you made mention of the fact that this should be more like the atmosphere that we wanted to see, across the entire country from the outcome of the presidential elections and even the gubernatorial elections that happened in 28 states across the country.
To a very large extent, the elections that we've had this season, if you study very well, we've had more hush-hush responses to certain people that have been, announced as governor-elect or even president-elect. We didn't see any kind of rejoicing, pomp and pageantry around, these announcements. And I mean, from Abia State, we can see what the expectations of Nigerians were like. I mean, it's happening in Abia State, but all of us in other parts of the country, just watching these videos coming out of the state, can feel their joy. The expectation of a change and a new era coming to Abia State is palpable for everybody. The hope is, there. I mean, we were asking a question also offset. Who would have paid that crowd to come out and celebrate? That's a spontaneous reaction to a news. We had keke drivers, market women, children alike, just come out and celebrate the win of Alex Otti, as also enhanced by Professor Nena Otti, who stood her ground, for the people's will to be received finally. It is just, a good sight. And I think just a way to brush in, something else that also makes me look at the fact that Alex Otti might indeed be the best choice for the people as they themselves have made, as some of the responses that he gave in his appreciation speech, yesterday having been announced. And I'm looking at it, he broke it down into all the segments that are needed. One thing that stood out for me is saying the fact that now Abia State has a lot of problems. We will not attempt to solve everything at a go. We must break it down into the most necessary areas and start treating it from there. And then he's talking about policies that will re-navigate how things have been done in Abia State for them to be able to collectively move on. And it is beautiful. He also, stated that we are going to keep our channels of communication open so that, thus far, the people have been able to have access to you, communicate with you, tell them their plight, and that's how they pushed you to the, becoming the governor-elect. After becoming governor-elect, it's not expected that you're going to close those channels of communication. So Alex Otti said in his acceptance speech, those channels are going to be open so that the contributions that the people of Abia State continue to make also affects the kinds of policies that they make. I think Abia State has just coming to a whole new day.
Anyways, before I even make my reactions, I want to, this is just for laughs though, when he talked about him opening the channels of communication for people to gain access, of course that was the access that people had gained before he became governor-elect. It brings to mind, the comments by Ojo Zokalo yesterday when he said that he has a particular phone number for the past 20 years, which means that he's keeping the channel open for communication and access. Anyway, away from that, we are expecting real governance now in Abia State, not just in Abia State, but in every other state that have gone through the elections this period. I think that aside from election petitions, that different political parties who are not satisfied with the outcome of the elections will be taking and going to court for, this is a time where these governors-elect will have to begin real governance now. And I like the fact that you've talked about his speech in terms of breaking down policies and, also keeping communication channels open for people to, give advice and all of that. But again, we've seen situations where, people have very lofty ideas, great visions. I think we were talking to a guest and they made mention of Ezekiel, one of the gubernatorial candidates in Akwa Ibom State. Ezekiel Yareto, yes. Where he said that his vision and policy statement, vying for that particular position was great. Okay, so we have a situation where people have this kind of great policies, but implementation now becomes a problem. Okay, so we are expecting that aside from just having these beautiful policies set aside, for the people of Abia State, he should go beyond that, to try to see how they can actually make things work better in Abia State. Now, it's one thing for you to be outside and try to see and criticize from the outside, stand from the outside and criticize the inside. But when you take up that mantle of leadership by 29th of May, when he is sworn in properly, we just hope that the people of Abia State will continue to rejoice at the kinds of governance and administration that Alex Otti will be giving.
That's a big hope for everybody in the country at this time. And because it becomes a real big flop if you're given this kind of opportunity by the people and you get there, and you do not live by this order. But I mean, it's government for the people. My trust is if the people put you there, the people can take you out, easily. But at this point, let's just move straight to the news brief desk where we have Mary Joseph on standby to bring us tidbits of global news. When we return, there's so much more conversations that we're bringing to you on Rise and Shine, so do stay with us.
our governors have to share police powers with the president as stipulated by the constitution. We do not have a federal government police force. We have the Nigeria Police Force, which shall be administered, organized, and supervised by the Nigerian Police Force.
No, my lord, I want to say something. I want to say something here. Perhaps it might also enlarge the scope of people who should be invited here for examination. My lord, if we cannot find those who literally murdered Abiola, who are those people who could be said to be the beneficiaries of the death of Abiola?
Rogers has linked you with some of the killings he did.
He never did.
He linked you with the attempted murder of Hebrew.
He did not.
My lord, the matters council is leading the evidence in our matters.
Is this an adversary proceeding?
It's not, my lord, but we can't be talking about cases which are in court, my lord.
Is this an adversary proceeding?
It's not, my lord. These cases are in court, my lord. I'm just reminding your lordship.
My lord, sorry, my lord, I think I'll be in cross-examination.
Legally Speaking, a program that deals with legal issues and questions we face as citizens of this amazing country, Nigeria. Legally Speaking. Join us every
Friday from 5 p.m. to 6 p.m.
for Legally Speaking.
One truth not often told is about the transformation that Africa has undergone in recent decades. Africa is shaping its own destiny and should be referred to as the African opportunity. On Spotlight Africa, we paint the African picture the African way, laced with truth, detail, and the color of the African continent. Join Uyai Anyekan every Tuesday and Thursdays at 4:30 p.m. Spotlight Africa, telling the African story.
Heads of state and government, Secretary General, delegates.
This was the Lagos Nigerian for Spectrum TV to recover 40 lives in counting.
A very good morning to you and welcome to your morning news brief on Spectrum, live from Uyo. I am Mary Joseph. We begin the news brief this morning with the President Muhammadu Buhari, who has urged Muslims to show kindness and love for humanity as this captures the essence of the Ramadan fast starting today. In a statement signed by the Senior Special Assistant to the President on Media and Publicity, Garba Shehu, Buhari, in his yearly Ramadan message to Nigerian Muslims at home and in the diaspora, urged them to use the opportunity to put the best teachings of Islam into practice, such as kindness and the love of humanity. Away from that, the Central Bank of Nigeria has reportedly finally concluded plans to release all 1,000 naira, 500 naira and 200 naira notes in its custody to deposit money banks. This comes as the Nigerian Labour Congress has announced plans to go on a nationwide protest on CBN offices as the result of the prolonged cash crisis. Reports say the decision is expected to end months of hardship and pains Nigerians have been going through following a controversial CBN Naira redesign policy that has caused a severe shortage of old and new Naira notes across the country. In the meantime, the British High Commission has said the UK Minister of State for Development and Africa, Andrew Mitchell, is prepared to take action against those who engaged in or incited electoral violence during the just concluded general elections. In a statement made available to newsmen, the Commission said the UK was already collating names of perpetrators and would impose sanctions, including preventing people from obtaining UK visas or imposing sanctions under the human rights sanction regime. Let's head now to the foreign scene, where the U.S. Central Bank has raised interest rates again, despite fears that the move could add to financial turmoil after a string of bank failures. The Federal Reserve increased its key rate by 0.25 percentage points, calling the banking system sound and resilient, but also warned that fallout from the bank failures may hurt economic growth in the months ahead. And finally, in sports, Super Eagles midfielder Alex Iwobi has refused to make promises ahead of the 2023 AFCON clash against Guinea-Bissau in Abuja on Friday. The Eagles are scheduled to play the Josser in a two-legged affair as they bid to book their place at the 2023 AFCON in Ivory Coast next year. The first leg holds at the Moshood Abiola National Stadium in Abuja on Monday, March 24, before the Eagles travel to Guinea-Bissau for the second leg, March 27. We'll have details of these stories and more in our news at 12. I am Mary Joseph. Let's head back to Rise and Shine, where we have Janice and Uyai on standby. Do have a wonderful morning.
Heads of state and government, Secretary General, delegates.
This was the Lagos Nigerian for Spectrum TV to recover 40 lives in counting.
Nigerian police force, which is the only one allowed by grossly abused. Our governors have to share police powers with the president as stipulated by the constitution. We do not have a federal government police force. We have the Nigerian police force, which shall be administered, organized, and supervised by the Nigerian police force.
No, my lord, I want to say something. I want to say something here. Perhaps it might also enlarge the scope of people who should be invited here for examination. My lord, if we cannot find those who literally murdered Abiola, who are those people who could be said to be the beneficiaries of the death of Abiola?
Rogers has linked you with some of the killings he did.
He never did.
He linked you with the attempted murder of Hebrew.
He did not.
My lord, the Matters Council is leading the evidence in our matters.
Is this an adversary proceeding?
It's not, my lord, but you can't be talking about cases which are in court.
Is this an adversary proceeding?
It's not, my lord. These cases are in court, my lord. I'm just reminding you, your lordship.
My lord, sorry, my lord, I think I'll be in cross-examination.
Legally Speaking, a program that deals with legal issues and questions we face as citizens of this amazing country, Nigeria. Legally Speaking. Join us every
Friday from 5 p.m. to 6 p.m.
for Legally Speaking.
One truth not often told is about the transformation that Africa has undergone in recent decades. Africa is shaping its own destiny and should be referred to as the African opportunity. On Spotlight Africa, we paint the African picture the African way, laced with truth, detail, and the color of the African continent. Join Uyai Anyekan every Tuesday and Thursdays at 4:30 p.m. Spotlight Africa, telling the African story.
Welcome back. This is still Rise and Shine, and we're coming to you live from Uyo, the capital city of Akwa Ibom State, Nigeria, having just returned from the news brief desk where we had Mary Joseph bring us tidbits of global news. Before we went to the news brief, we looked at certain stories making the rounds in Nigeria, top of which is the announcement of Alex Otti as governor-elect of Abia State, and the fact that the presiding chairman of the State Collation Center, Professor Nena Otti, is also trending in Nigeria for her resolution to make sure that the decision of the people stood in the just concluded Guba elections in Abia State. Also, we've heard in our flash news that the CBN governor has asked that all denominations of the Naira notes be re-injected into commercial banks to circulate in the country. These are some of the stories we've highlighted just before we went on that break, but more things are happening. President-elect of our dear nation is already currently on his first medical trip outside the country.
Yeah, definitely. Of course, reports of Nigeria's president-elect Bola Tinubu traveling out to Europe for medical attention after falling ill has sparked numerous reactions. Now, you don't expect Nigerians to hear that kind of news and then not react to it. Coming from the background of the fact that before he even got elected, as president-elect, Nigerians were also of major concern about his health condition, if that was going to carry him, with all the encumbrances of governance and all of that, will he be able to withstand it? And just before governance starts in real terms now, we see Bola Ahmed Tinubu of the All Progressives Congress, of course, president-elect, jetting out to Europe, for medicals. But some kind of people in his cabinet have also said that he's going to take a rest so that he can also, perform the Hajj as well.
Oh, yes, of course. This is the season for the Muslims to celebrate, one of their year calendar events, and of course that's a good way to put it. He's going out there for Hajj, and well, in all honesty, we can't say that the man can get his checkups done. He's old, advanced in age, and will need consistent checkups and all of those things.
But again, Uyai, to be fair to Bola Ahmed Tinubu, when we look at even the campaigns and how he ran his campaign, you know that he was present in every.
But he went to rest for that one now.
Every of the traveling that happened, he went to rest and then came back again and continued with campaigns, and then the elections now proper. So all the excesses of the elections, all the stress of the elections is taking a toll on him. And when you look at him and his age, you also know that he needs rest, whether we like it or not. That's the truth. Even as human beings, young people, there are times that you come down under the weight of maybe the job you're doing, and your body tells you, hey, it's time to rest, and you need to take that rest. So I think that's what Bola Ahmed Tinubu has gone to do. Rest himself properly, reinvigorate himself, recuperate from whatever it is that is stressing him out, and then come back again. And of course, look forward to, like he said, he's going to make sure that he has sleepless nights to make sure Nigeria is in good shape again.
We just hope that we do not have cumulative rest time that amounts to, a period of time that will get in the way of governance. That is just, I'm sure this is part of the things Nigerians are reacting about. When we now do this cumulatively over the next 4 years, we do not hope that we have lost a larger chunk of time on medical, what do we call it now? Tourism, as it were. But that's it. Our president-elect is currently not in the country. He's said to have traveled out for routine medical checkup and to observe the Hajj. That's basically it for...
but a few reactions here that I can see from Bragi Tomo. It says African leaders should stay in Africa for medical treatment. They should use the services they put in place. I think that's serious concerns here. Why do we have a country and we have medical systems in our country, but at every headache our political elites have, the jet out of the country for medical tourism? It's quite worrisome. So more like that's one of the sectors, the governor, the president-elect now should be looking into, basically when he becomes, when he is properly sworn in. But let's look at this other one. It says, no precedent in our history traveled abroad for medical health care more than President Buhari. I think that's another line of reaction. Let's even come down to President Muhammadu Buhari. If you like to calculate how many times he has jetted out.
It was about a year loss. So that's what
Yes.
I'm saying. We hope that cumulatively we don't have that kind of experience
Again,
with the president-elect. So in President Muhammadu Buhari's in the administration of 8 years, a whole year cumulatively has been calculated for the number of times he has gone for medical tourism. So if we do this again another time, are we looking at a replay of the Muhammadu Buhari-led administration, where one would excuse that, oh, these are two different people, that will get the work done? No, but it's just worrisome, you know. That's why we cannot generally say, oh, let's not emphasize on their health, you know, before they get into the state. These things are necessary. Your youth is imperative for how active you can be in that particular position. You know, it's the weight of the entire country that's going to be on your shoulder.
Of course, yes.
If you already have a failing health, quote and unquote, for anybody at this time, it's going to be a problem.
The argument will be that he's not the one directly, you know, doing these things. He could delegate. He will have ministers and
something he has strength for.
Yeah, you know, and all of that. But like you said, let's just hang it in there. We wish him all the best, even as he takes his medical treatment. And we hope to see him again in the country very soon. But let's go straight now to our papers, of course, where we get to share with you major stories making it on the front page of our national dailies. So it's Daily Spotlight. Okay, so Daily Spotlight. We'll go straight to our paper.
Of course, on Daily Spotlight this morning, we go to our very first paper of the morning, and that will be The Nation. We're looking at The Nation newspaper, and the very big story there says, workers draw battle line over lingering naira scarcity. NLC directs picketing of CBN offices. Apex Bank plans return of old nodes. My victory, a call to do more, says Makinde. FEC okays 459.08 billion for ministry NDLEA. Okay. We have here facial recognition technology for major airport. Page 11. 19 Lagos train bus accident victims still on admission. On page 6. President-elect for Paris, London, Saudi Arabia. Page 3. He's left for Paris, London, Saudi Arabia. I guess that's what they're trying to write. Buhari Sultan urged Muslims to reflect Islam's virtues. Atiku to court, declare me winner or order rerun. Okay. PDP candidate lists grounds against results. Okay. LP wins Abia. PDP takes Enugu. Otti Mba are governors-elect. 7 in battle for Senate presidents. Okay. North Central, Northwest joins Southeast, South in race for top office. We also have here alleged cocaine deal. Court rejects Abba Kyari's. Others request to void charges. And that's all we have on the front page of The Nation.
Okay, let's go now to other papers on other papers this morning. We have This Day newspaper. This Day newspaper says, the big story here says, non-compliance with Electoral Act invalidates Tinubu's election, Atiku tells tribunal. And the writer says, maintains president-elect must score 25% in FCT. Insists bypass non-use of beavers in results transmission. affected integrity of polls. Okay, so I take that again. Insist bypass non-use of beavers in result transmission affected integrity of polls. Protesters storm National Assembly, call for annulment of presidential elections. We also have seek removal, arrest of INEC chairman. British High Commission promises to keep an eye on legal proceedings. Okay, moving forward now. At last, Labour Party's Otti wins Abia, PDP's Mba clinches Enugu. Congratulations to them. Rollman, Tinubu out of country to rest and observe lesser Hajj. Where you find that story is on page 10. Seplat Energy drags former chairman Ojiako to court for alleged false representation. And we also have a story here that says APC suspends Bas Mustafa indefinitely for non-performance. Oh, wow. APC suspends Bas Mustafa indefinitely for non-performance. For details of that story, you can find it on page 36. And that's all we have there, but we'll definitely get details of this particular story to see what happened.
All right, we'll move on now to, we take the Punch newspaper this morning. The Punch newspaper, the very big story there says NLC protest CBN to flood banks with old Naira notes. Banks get old 1,000 Naira 500 notes from CBN today to prevent NLC action. So it's more like just a response because NLC is saying they're going on protest. Wow. Emefiele orders end to cash withdrawal limits during meeting with bank CEOs. So Governor of CBN orders end to cash withdrawal limits during meeting with bank CEOs. We're living in such precious times in a financial institution. 146 National Assembly candidates petition tribunals in 12 states so far. Page 2. Buhari Islamic Council preach love as Ramadan begins. Page 13. FEC okays 454 billion naira for Kanu Niger Republic Rail. Others. Page 19. We have here Buhari, Oshibajo, Obasanjo, Clinton, others hail Elumelu at, and that's Elemelu, at 60. Tony Elemelu turned 60. Okay. UK to list electoral offenders plan sanctions. Great. Page 27. Tinubu away for lesser Hajj and rest, says 8. Page 8. Jubilation as Otti wins Abia. PDP retains Enugu. Page 13. That's all we have on the front page of the Punch newspaper.
Very quickly now, let's look at what Daily Sun has to say. Of course, some stories are reflecting in all our national dailies this morning. The cash scarcity is another one where we are having NLC set to cripple CBN officers. And the writer says, as 1 week ultimatum elapses today, Union says no going back, begins mobilization of members. Apex Bank instructs banks to collect old Naira notes deposited with CBN. We also have a story here that says Kyari, others lose bid to squash drug trafficking charges. You can find that on page 4. Presidential elections, I didn't betray Obi, says Wike, and the writer says berates Ayu for losing Benue. Senate presidents now. We want Kalu to douse tension in South group. That's a comment by a group. You know, we talked about that yesterday as well. Swearing in Tinubu will kill democracy in Nigeria. Dati Ahmed wants. You can find that story on page 27. Outcome of election justifies Biafra agitation, says IPOP. 26, page 26 is where you find that particular story. And we also have something else on election here. It says we are collating information to punish offenders. That's from the UK. And the writer says this cries use of violence, vote buying, voter suppression, intimidation, harassment of journalist orders. You can find that story on page 26 as well. Moving on, INEC declares Otti Mba winners in Abia and Enugu State. And that's all we have on Daily Sun this morning. Oh yeah, next paper.
Okay, let's just take Vanguard newspaper this morning, and the very big story there says INEC used third-party device to switch results for Tinubu. Says article, INEC used third-party device to switch results for Tinubu. Alleges Tinubu's appointee controlled INEC's ICT unit on election day. Alleges third-party device installed. No server failures as claimed by INEC. Full results not uploaded before declaring winner. Tinubu didn't get 1/4 of FCT vote. All of the stories are available on page 5 of the Vanguard. Guba polls, jubilation as Otti wins in Abia, Mba emerges in Enugu. Terrorists kill 51 Zamfara vigilante men, abandoned corpses in bushes. Page 7, very sad story there. Inflation pushes pension funds investment in federal government bonds to 9.6 trillion naira. That story can be found on page 19 of the Vanguard. We also have here drug trafficking charge. Court declines to stop Abba Kyari's trial. Page 9. SDG on water, Nigeria may miss 2030 target, says UNICEF. Page 8. Tinubu not qualified to be sworn in as president, Dati Ahmed. Page 8. And we also have here Ramadan begins today, says Sultan. Page 13. And that's going to be a very big happy Ramadan to all of our Muslim faithfuls nationwide. We also have here a picture news of Tony Elemelu at 60, and that's all we have on the front page of the Vanguard.
I think we'll take our very last paper. That will be the Nigerian Tribune. Nigerian Tribune this morning. Of course, we have a repetition of some of the stories across most of the national dailies, but this one says federal government fact now. Federal government, states, local government shared 722.677 billion naira for February. And then interestingly, on the race for the Senate President of Nigeria, this is coming from Barua. He says, I am most experienced for Senate presidency. Let me look for another story that did not quite reflect. 2/3 world population may face water shortage by 2050, FAO warns. Yesterday we celebrated World Water Day, and more like while you're celebrating World Water Day, we are also looking at hygiene and all of that, and more like diseases that could be born out of the bad quality of water. But very quickly now, and I think one thing that gets my attention in all of this is a story from the CBN saying that monies have been released, more monies will be released to commercial banks for use, and you were asking why didn't this happen all of this time? Is it because the NLC has threatened to actually go on a nationwide protest? NLC is also saying they're not backing down, so whether the CBN has promised to release and disburse monies to commercial banks, the NLC, Nigeria Labour Congress, now is not backing down. But before you make reactions, of course, we open up the phone lines now to Nigerians to have their say. Do well to call us on all the numbers being displayed on your TV screen this morning. Let's know your thought on some of the issues that have been raised on from the pages of our national dailies this morning. Oh yeah, Nigerians will always be Nigerians, and then the cash limit has also.
Oh
yeah,
you shouldn't have reminded me about that. It was skipping. We live in very funny times. Like we always say, our policies are not engineered to meet the needs of the people. They just engineer it to meet certain perceptions and certain needs that they have in that illicit circle. Because why did you place withdrawal limits somewhere along the line, stress us for several months, and all of a sudden, without concrete explanation? We are just hearing that, the withdrawal limits have been lifted after a meeting, with CBN stakeholders.
They're not telling us what was said in the meeting, the outcome of the meeting, what were the disagreements, and then why we have chosen to suddenly, take up the withdrawal limits.
It's just funny.
Recirculating
the old naira. But like I was trying to hint earlier on. Why are we just hearing that, you know, the naira is going to recirculate? I think it's been almost 2 weeks when we since we had Godwin Emefiele come out to say, oh, now we've not been trying to stand against the Supreme Court's judgment. Actually, the banks are going to start disbursing all denominations of the old naira. And yes, to a very large extent, we saw that money start circulating back in the system, but it is not readily available. We are still buying the naira notes. We are still queuing for hours just to be able to get these same old naira notes, and it's been worrisome. So why are we now just hearing that they are going to, you know, repump the money back into the system? Why are the commercial banks just having to gain access to this money again? It's some kind of play of power in our financial system that is not working for us as a country. Yeah. And we really need to sit back down and re-evaluate what matters to us most in this country, because we seem to just be playing a game of dice. We take it up, we shake it, wherever we turn, we do whatever we see. And that's not how a structured governmental system is supposed to work.
Yeah, putting institutions in place to, you know, to be able to execute policies.
Exactly.
Bring out policies and execute those policies effectively. Now, with all of what is happening, we can deduce that, okay, so the whole money policy and naira redesign of Emefiele was basically because he was trying to like hit on certain people, and
of which he did not succeed. If you're going to say, we can't even say that they succeeded, you know, in that right. We can't say they succeeded because, I mean, we had conversations with international observers. I think that was yesterday, and it is widespread. They called us in from Bayelsa State during the election. Nigeria decides, and they told us vote buying in this circle of election had, you know, hit its all-time high like never experienced. People were still buying the votes with all their heart. Do you understand? Yeah. So whether or not there was a cash crunch or withdrawal limits placed on money, people that wanted to move money around during the election, they moved money around,
and very swiftly as well.
Someone was saying, how come that monies transferred for vote buying did not have
was not traceable?
It was not traceable, number one. Number two, they did not experience glitches. You know, a lot of people have complained over the Godwin Emefiele even apologized yesterday for all of the experiences we've had, bad experiences we've had with e-money transfers. But it seems that everyone that transferred money for a political reason, the money went to where it was headed.
Anyways, we'll just keep our fingers crossed to see whether the Nigerian Labour Congress will actually take to their side where they say they are going to be going on a nationwide protest. Another thing that caught our attention during the, you know, the whole daily spotlight now is the story about Boss Mustafa, secretary to the government of the Federation. Why are you suspending him? Now, guess what is the interesting reason for why he's been suspended? It says that the All Progressive Congress in Adamawa State suspended the secretary to the government of the Federation, Boss Mustafa, for losing his polling units to the People's Democratic Party at the presidential and governorship polls. Now, the party disclosed that the SGF did not contribute to the victory of its presidential and governorship candidates. Now, is that enough reason why you would say that somebody should be suspended from a political party? Let's not forget, Uyai, the presidential candidate for the People's Democratic Party, Alhaji Atiku Abubakar, is from Adamawa State. So if anybody should win in Adamawa State, definitely I think Alhaji Atiku Abubakar will not shoot himself on the foot by allowing an APC government take over that state.
It's not even the matter of not allowing. It's more like the people of the state also want to support their own. I mean, Alhaji Atiku Abubakar also has made a lot of investments.
Boss Mustafa is from that as well.
Yes, but to a very large, that's why I was even coming to. Alhaji Atiku Abubakar has made a lot of investments in Adamawa State. When you're talking his businesses, most of his businesses are situated in Adamawa State. So he's providing employment. He's, you know, the state is moving forward because of certain presence that he has. Yeah. So it's just common sense that he would win in most places in Adamawa State, yeah? But now, the problem in this conversation is, how do you suspend someone because he did not deliver his polling unit? Okay, you know, let's take this very first call and then we'll definitely get back to this conversation because I'm interested. Hello, good morning. What's your name and where are you calling from?
Yeah, good morning, my two sisters there.
Very good morning to you. What's your name and where are you calling from?
My name is Gimba Mohammed. I'm calling from Kogi State.
Okay, Gimba. Good morning.
I am interested in what the topic you are saying about the Naira design.
Okay, go ahead.
I think we shouldn't just cancel or make any big observation that nothing works about the Naira design. Actually, if you follow from the primaries, what actually happened in the primaries, it was as if they were even sharing more than the Naira. They even went into dollars. But I will only tell you that this exercise reduces that money, that vote buying, not what even some people were challenging the government policy on the Naira design for. Actually, it reduces the, we know no election you don't use money, but for this election, my sisters, it reduces the buying of votes, not like what it used to be as if it's a Naira ring for everybody, even down to dollar ring. This thing reduces from what we have from our own state here and other areas too. So I'm of the opinion that at least we should appreciate some government policies when they are doing it. Mr. Emefiele is not trying to put hardship on people, except that just like what you have said, that implementation of some certain policies sometimes used to bring something, pains. But then the future will be the best for all. So I am of the opinion that the Naira design really reduces that vote buying. It's just that the oppositions are just making hell of noise out of it. That is just my opinion I want to tell you.
All right, thank you so much, Gimba from Kogi State. Obviously, he has a point there. When you look at even how difficult it was for Naira to circulate that period, and that was why a lot of people said, oh, Nigeria has become dollarized, the dollars began to fly, from every angle and all of that. But we would have seen a different situation if there was so much money in circulation during the election period. I think we have another call. We'll quickly take that. Hello, good morning. Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
What's your name and where are you calling from?
Coming from Warri.
Your
My
name,
is
please?
Jonathan.
Jonathan from Warri. Go ahead.
Yes, my take on that, what you are discussing and the Naira redesign, is that the CPN governor should honorable resign, step down. He has disappointed in Nigeria. He has disappointed every one of us, because coming with a policy of this nature at this critical time of election, I believe is to sabotage the system.
All right. Thank you so much, Jonathan, for your contribution.
Thank you, Jonathan.
Obviously, Nigerians have diverse views and angles to this whole thing. Exactly. Remember also that when the policy came into place, a lot of people said it was a fantastic policy, okay? But the timing was what the problem was, a very wrong timing. And then how can you redesign the Naira and then give us about a few months for, for the old Nairas to fizzle out? Meanwhile, it's not supposed to be so. We're supposed to be working in tandem, the old Naira and the new Naira, until it fizzles out gradually. But we have another call. Let's quickly take that. Hello, good morning.
Hello, good morning. This is Confidence calling from Kaduna State.
Confidence?
Yes.
Okay, Confidence from Kaduna. Go ahead.
Regarding the issue of Naira design policy, I think we are becoming too detailed in this country. Because relating the issue of the design Naira policy to vote by the issue of vote buying, in fact, there is no election in Nigeria where voters were induced such as this. For the first time, in fact, only one party we are having access to money to canvass vote. Now, this designing of Naira, we are not right for it. Otherwise, if the objective were right, then we shouldn't have issues with network. So, because since yesterday, someone transfer, even me trying to transfer, carrying out one or two transactions, I could not be able to perfect the transactions due to network failure. So, we are not right for this. We don't know actually what these people are intending to achieve.
All right, thank you so much, Confidence. Your point is noted.
Well, like he said earlier, different strokes for different folks.
Yeah.
We're interpreting it from different prisms. overall it has been established. There is nothing wrong with the policy. Timing and implementation has been a major problem. Okay, this is definitely going to be the last call we're taking for this morning. Hello, good morning. What's your name and where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Warri.
Don't worry, your name, please.
My name is Comrade Mario Guy.
All right.
Comrade, are you?
Maria, something like that.
What's your name, please?
Mario Guy, Comrade Mario Guy.
Okay. All right, sir. Please,
go
Comrade,
ahead.
Go on.
Comrade, go ahead.
Yeah, my take on the issue is I stand to correct the first caller that the issue of Naira swap didn't affect vote buying. Vote buying perfectly took place through transfer of funds. So buying is buying, selling is selling, whether it's cash or transferred. So it never solved any problem about vote buying.
Okay, so Comrade, I think we're finding it a little bit difficult to hear you because you're not quite audible. But thank you so much for your thoughts. We heard that in Warri, for example, there was excessive vote buying. Remember also, a guest said, look, vote buying is not all about just giving money. So the wrapper, the salt, the rice, and everything
that's the same thing he just said also.
Okay.
Yeah, it went beyond just, cash, whether it was physical or transferred.
Yes, or transfer.
Vote buying really occurred in this last election. That's what our last caller also was, really saying. So he was standing on what our first caller said.
Yes.
That, the redesign policy got in the way. It really didn't get in the way, actually.
Yeah, definitely did.
Okay, I think that's basically all that we can take in terms of calls.
Yes, so we'll take a breather now. Thank you so much for all that called in. We'll take a breather. And when we come back, of course, tomorrow, which is the 24th of March, the world over has been celebrated as World Tuberculosis Day. So that will be our focus this morning. Let's see how we can actually work on this is it pandemic? No, endemic now. Okay, so we'll take a breather, and when we come back, of course, we come back right in with our guests. Just stay with us.
Nigerian police, which is the only one allowed by grossly abused. Our governors have to share police powers with the president as stipulated by the constitution. We do not have a federal government police force. We have the Nigerian police force, which shall be administered, organized, and supervised by the Nigerian police.
No, my lord, I want to say something. I want to say something here. Perhaps it might also enlarge the scope of people who should be invited here for examination. My lord, if we cannot find those who literally murdered Abiola, who are those people who could be said to be the beneficiaries of the death of Abiola?
Rogers has linked you with some of the killings he did.
He never did.
He linked you with the attempted murder of Hebrew.
He did not.
My lord, the matters council is leading the evidence in our matters.
Is this an adversary proceeding?
It's not, my lord, but you can't be talking about cases which are in court.
Is this an adversary proceeding?
It's not, my lord. These cases are in court, my lord. I'm just reminding your lordship.
My lord, sorry, my lord. I think I'll be in cross-examination.
Legally Speaking, a program that deals with legal issues and questions we face as citizens of this amazing country, Nigeria. Legally Speaking. Join us every
Friday from 5 p.m. to 6 p.m.
for Legally Speaking.
One truth not often told is about the transformation that Africa has undergone in recent decades. Africa is shaping its own destiny and should be referred to as the African opportunity. On Spotlight Africa, we paint the African picture the African way, laced with truth, detail, and the color of the African continent. Join Uyai Anyekan every Tuesday and Thursdays at 4:30 p.m. Spotlight Africa, telling the African story.
Nigerian police force, which is the only one allowed by grossly abused. Our governors have to share police powers with the president as stipulated by the constitution. We do not have a federal government police force. We have the Nigerian police force, which shall be administered, organized, and supervised by the Nigerian police force.
No, my lord, I want to say something. I want to say something here. Perhaps it might also enlarge the scope of people who should be invited here for examination. My lord, if we cannot find those who literally murdered Abiola, who are those people who could be said to be the beneficiaries of the death of Abiola?
Rogers has linked you with some of the killings he did.
He never did.
He linked you with the attempted murder of Hebrew.
He did not.
My lord, the matters council is leading the evidence in our matters.
Is this an adversary proceeding?
It's not, my lord, but you can't be talking about cases which are in court.
Is this an adversary proceeding?
It's not, my lord. These cases are in court, my lord. I'm just reminding you, lordship.
My lord, sorry, my lord, I think I'll be in cross-examination.
Legally Speaking, a program that deals with legal issues and questions we face as citizens of this amazing country, Nigeria. Legally Speaking. Join us every
Friday from 5 p.m. to 6 p.m.
for Legally Speaking.
All right, welcome back from that particular breather that we took. Like I said earlier before we went on that short break, we are actually going to be celebrating a World Tuberculosis Day tomorrow, which is the 24th of March. And that is being celebrated world over because of how severe an endemic that tuberculosis is. And this morning, joining us to shed more light on the need to do justice to this topic is Dr. Nisi Oloruntobi, who is a Senior Programs Manager, KNCV, Nigeria. Good morning and many thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Okay. So, World Tuberculosis Day will be celebrated tomorrow, and we know we have serious concerns here because most times people come down with this excessive coughing and do not know when to differentiate when the cough goes beyond necessary for them to begin to seek proper medical attention. But before we go on to the symptoms and how tuberculosis looks like, let's know what is tuberculosis and why do we set aside a particular day where we are going to be celebrating World Tuberculosis Day? What's the importance of that day?
Okay, thank you very much and thanks for having me. Good morning, audience, and everybody at home. Actually, in the year 1882, there's a German scientist called Robert Koch. He was the first to discover the organism that is responsible for TB, and he called it Mycobacterium tuberculosis. So from that day, that was 24th of March, that day was globally agreed that every year is going to be a day set aside to gain our support and to commemorate World TB Day. And that is the story behind the 24th of March every year that World TB Day is celebrated.
Okay.
Yeah.
So tell us what tuberculosis is.
So
is it just cough?
So
or there's more to
TB
it?
goes beyond just cough, though cough is the commonest symptom of tuberculosis. So to define tuberculosis, I would say it's a chronic infectious disease that is characterized by majorly cough, weight loss, night sweat, and what we call drenching night sweat and low-grade fever. TB is caused by a bacterium known as Mycobacterium tuberculosis, though there could be other symptoms depending on the part of the body that is affected. So TB does not only affect the lungs, which is the commonest one that we have. TB can affect almost every part of the body. I heard you say from the beginning that excessive cough, the cough doesn't have to be excessive.
Oh, wow.
Cough of any duration now is good to suspect TB. So anyone that is coughing it's good for that person to have a test to rule out tuberculosis.
Okay, so in the first instance, how do people contract tuberculosis? Because is it just like, in the case of malaria, when you have the mosquito that had the virus bite, you can be getting on, malaria. In tuberculosis, what's the causative factor? How do you, get affected?
Okay, the causative factor, as I said, is caused by a bacterium called Mycobacterium tuberculosis. Now, the mode of transmission is through the air. For example, if someone has TB and that person coughs, in the process of coughing, if he has what we call pulmonary TB, the one that affects the lung. So as he coughs, he expels the bacilli and lets the bacilli out into the surrounding environment. And as far as you are alive, you have to breathe. As you breathe in, you also breathe in the bacilli because the air around that environment is contaminated. So the route of transmission is through the air, is airborne.
Okay, so I like this conversation because it's more like educative right now, educating people that there's something called tuberculosis and, how you can contact it, how you can also treat it as well. But you made mention of a particular type, so which means that there are types of tuberculosis.
Definitely.
So you can just, talk more about that.
Yeah. For the sake of my audience, TB can be classified in different ways, but I would just like to classify it based on the body parts that is affected. If it affects the lungs, it's called pulmonary TB.
Okay.
And it affects other parts of the body, it's called extra pulmonary TB. Okay. TB can affect virtually every part of the body, from the brain down to the limbs. Like it can affect the covering of the brain, we call it TB meningitis. It can affect the skin, it can affect the joints, it can affect the organs in the stomach, in the abdominal area, it can affect it. TB can affect the joints, and then a common one that we see in children is TB of the spine. You see a child that has a swelling at the back of the spine, something that is called a gibbous. TB can also cause that.
And all of these are still airborne. They contracted it, but
yeah, they contracted it. So the one that is transmissible is the pulmonary TB.
Okay.
Because someone who has TB that is pulmonary in nature will have to cough, expel the bacilli, then pass it to people in the same environment. But the extra pulmonary that affects other parts of the body is not transmissible. Yes.
So, but then that is not transmissible. How did it now, travel in the body system to affect the covering of the brain and other parts of the body?
The person who had extra pulmonary TB would have gotten it from someone who had pulmonary TB.
Okay.
Inhaled it in, then the TB now moved through the bloodstream to other parts of the body.
In these cases of extrapulmonary, tuberculosis, do we have those cases in very large numbers? Because, for most people, we are just hearing now for the first time that tuberculosis is in other areas, but then how widespread, the percentage of people that suffer from extrapulmonary
studies have shown that, yes, studies have shown that about 70 to 80% is pulmonary, while the other 20 to 30% is extrapulmonary.
Okay.
It's actually there. We just need to look very well. We'll find it.
So can we say that the numbers are not scary?
When you talk about percentage, is different from number. The number are scary, but the percentage of pulmonary to extrapulmonary, as I said, is 70 to 80% to 20 to 30%. But in terms of absolute number, is scary because globally, in 2001, the global TB notification was 6.4 million people globally. And in Nigeria, we were able to have 47% of the total TB burden that was expected from Nigeria. It was expected that we should have about 400,000 TB cases, but we were able to do 47% of that figure.
Something you just said now that is very striking. Is there something in certain topographies that makes tuberculosis more prevalent in certain countries than other countries? Because if it's airborne, is this something in the topography of Africa or in Nigeria that makes it more prevalent here than in other continents of the world?
I don't think it's about the topography. TB is said to be a disease of the poor. It's commoner in people of low socioeconomic status compared to people of high socioeconomic status. So it has to do with the economic status of a particular nation and of a particular people.
So why exactly is that so? And from what you described, it's more like why we're seated here today is to talk about pulmonary TB, which is more prevalent than the other kinds of TB. But why do we have it, affecting the poorest of the poor more than it is affecting the elites? Is there something that, the poor people are doing or not doing that is causing this to happen?
There are a lot of factors, but
like risk factors?
Yes, something like a risk factor. Okay. But you see, the number one highest risk factor that comes toppest on the list for someone to have TB is undernutrition. And undernutrition is more in people of
so
let me say
down,
low.
Break it down. When you say undernutrition, that
undernutrition,
well.
Not eating balanced diet, not eating, let me say, complete balanced diet, and not eating enough, that could be said to be undernutrition.
Yeah, you know that they'll tell you that something like Gary has been saving lives since 1900. And we have families that will eat Gary in the morning, afternoon, and evening. So
I think that still goes to say that that's a really poor, demographic of people, because people that are not poor will know that you can't eat Gary morning, afternoon, and evening. So yes,
of course, that is not balanced diet, because if someone has undernutrition, definitely the immune system of that person will not be strong enough, and we all need good immune system for us to be able to combat diseases. So those who have undernutrition, that means the immune system will not be able to help them fight diseases, and TB comes in that list. Yes.
Okay, so you were mentioning risk factors. Go ahead.
So undernutrition, HIV infection, diabetes, alcohol abuse use. Also talk about extremes of age, very young children, most times under 5, and elderly people. Elderly people because their immune system is weak, and under 5 because their immune system is just developing. And those who are on anti-cancer drugs too, because their anti-cancer drug suppresses their immunity. So these are risk factors, though there are other factors that also aid the transmission of the disease. For example, overcrowding, poor ventilation, all these are factors that affect the transmission of TB.
So tuberculosis, is it a death sentence?
Because it's not a death sentence. It's absolutely curable. If someone has TB, no matter the type of TB, because again, TB can be classified based on the drug that is being used, but any kind of TB, whether it's drug susceptible TB or drug resistant TB, there's cure for it. And the commonest is drug susceptible TB that most people have, and with a 6-month regimen of drugs, that person is cured.
It makes me wonder why someone that has come down with TB will be going through a 6-month regimen before the person can, actually recoup or recuperate. And I know also that something about tuberculosis is that if you break your treatment regimen somewhere in between, you have to start all over again.
Yeah.
So just, explain that more for us.
The TB
why
bacilli,
is it taking 6 months?
Yes, the bacteria, for it to be totally killed and eradicated in the body of an individual, the individual will have to take the drug as long as that period. If the duration is not completed, then that person may have resistance to that drug. The bacteria, the Mycobacterium tuberculosis, may develop a resistance, and that makes it more difficult for that TB to be treated. So as much as possible, we want people to stick to their regimen. If it's 6 months, ensure that you take it for 6 months without breaking it, and that is why it's very important.
Okay. Under the 6 months, while someone is taking their, medication and following the regimen, is it possible for them to still, transmit or transfer that virus to another person? So, say I live in a house with someone who has TB, and that person is observing a regimen. Is there a possibility of another person contracting it?
Well, in medicine, you never say it's not possible, but studies have shown that the moment someone who's diagnosed with TB starts appropriate treatment within 24 to 48 hours, the risk of that person transmitting that infection to another is almost zero.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So
it reduces the risks. So in the TB program, we say that the best prevention is appropriate treatment. So for someone who has TB not to transmit the infection to others, that person needs to be identified and placed on appropriate TB treatment.
Okay, now still talking about treatment, and I want to cue from Uyai's line of thought now. Transmissive, okay? It's transmissive, and that's why you have seclusion. So is it always the case that when somebody is identified as a tuberculosis patient, the person should be secluded or quarantined?
Yeah, well, I don't really follow that.
Because I think that's where the whole stigmatization comes in now.
Yes, and that was what I wanted to talk about. TB is a disease of stigma and discrimination, so we have to be careful about that.
Okay.
Before that person was diagnosed with TB, he was living with the people, right?
Okay.
Now that he's been found to have TB and is receiving treatment, he's not supposed to be separated.
Okay.
In fact, the risk of transmitting the infection reduces to almost zero after 24 to 48 hours of commencing the treatment. And taking TB drugs, patients will need a lot of support. They need psychological support, they need social support, they need emotional support, because the moment someone hears that you have TB, it changes a lot of things about that person. And that level of support is needed from the family. Isolating that person, I don't think will help.
Okay, so just in a way to wrap up, because we're almost at the end of our time, this tuberculosis treatment, is it free or is it readily available? Because these are some of the questions. Where do we walk into? How do we access it? We know that almost in every part of the world, treatment for HIV/AIDS is free. There are companies, the organizations that make the treatment available. Is it the same thing for tuberculosis?
Yeah, there is a common slogan that we say that if you have cough, check camo, as in you go to a health facility, you do a free test, and if that person is found to have tuberculosis, the treatment is free, the test is free, and the treatment is free. Like I said earlier, TB is a disease of the poor. Where would the poor even get the resources to access care? So for now, diagnosis or testing and treatment is free.
I think that's good news for anybody that is having or suffering from tuberculosis. But lastly now, the theme for this year is we can end TB.
Yes, we can end TB.
Yes, that's what I'm coming to. Why haven't we, the world over, since we're celebrating, is a world celebration now, why can't we come up with a vaccine that people will get, just like we get vaccine for COVID, yes, for example, now we get vaccines for COVID. Why can't we manufacture vaccines that can actually end this totally, instead of going through how many weeks now? 6 months?
6 months.
Yes, 6 months regimen treatment of taking plenty drugs. For me, I can't stand drugs. So there are people that are on this same table with me. Why don't we come up with a vaccine?
Okay, I would just like to say a very short story. I know the time is almost gone. If you look at the TB notification in 2019, before the onset of COVID, was 7.1 million globally. And we thought we are going to making that upward, progression. But when COVID came, took the attention, and the notification globally came down. And came down to 5.4 in 2020, But in 2021, we made just a marginal gain to 6.4. Now, you could see that COVID took the attention and it had a negative impact on TB. Mortality as a result of TB also increased when COVID came. Now, the slogan for the theme for this year, yes, we can end TB, is a response to the negative impact that COVID had on TB. We're just trying to recommit ourselves, reassure ourselves that despite the negative impact, that we can still make effort to control TB globally.
Okay, I think that would just be it. Obviously, tuberculosis is not a death sentence, just like Dr. Nisi has said. And I like the fact that he's also reiterated the fact that treatment from diagnosis to treatment to everything is free. So you can walk into any
health
facilities, yes, and get treatment for free.
Both private and
nice,
public.
Nice, that's right. All right, thank you so much, Dr. Nisi
Thank you for having
me. Senior Program Manager, KNCV, Nigeria. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Well, yeah, I think this is wrap-up time.
Yeah, definitely wrap-up time. Days of good education feels good to the brain, and we've been, educated up back and forth on certain and then handling certain myths around tuberculosis. So it's been a good experience, and I want to say a big thank you to everyone who was a part of our show today, everyone who called in and made contributions. We absolutely appreciate it. My name is Uyai Aneka. Definitely will see you again tomorrow.
Yes, we'll definitely see you again tomorrow for another edition of Rise and Shine Daily. But at this point, we'll hand you over now to Sports Central, where we have Isaac and Blyden Ukem Talk Sports. My name is Janice Cobham. See you again tomorrow. Bye-bye.